India is all set to complete its delivery of the BrahMoS system to the Philippines. The fourth battery of the three 290-kilometer range missiles is being delivered today. This is a major development for all of us as we witness a high-octane poll campaign here in India. It is important to note that this comes during the growing tensions between China and Manila in the South China Sea. The BrahMoS Philippines deal has ensured that India's defense exports have already touched 21,083 crore rupees in 2023-2024 alone, with a massive 32.5% year-on-year growth as compared to the past fiscal year. As BrahMoS has a proven track record, India is expected to bag more such orders from the supersonic missiles in the near future. Let's start off this discussion. I'm going to quickly bring in Major General G.G. Dwivedi. A response from you with regards to this yet another landmark achievement made in the Make in India Defence Initiative of BJP government. On one end, there is of course the security concern that has to be kept in mind when Philippines falls prey to the expansionist tendencies of China. On the other hand, this is a great leap in how India looks at it as a defense manufacturing hub across the globe.
Well, Megha, certainly this was a landmark deal. And with this deal, India did get catapulted into the League of Nations, which are exporting high technology, high-end weapon systems. And to that extent, I think India did cross a Rubicon line. And this deal is a landmark deal in India's quest, and as India progresses to be a major manufacturer of weapons equipment and exporter. Now, coming to the 2-3 issues that you raised, first and foremost, weapon deals always have strategic implications, and so is the case with Philippines, because China's aggressiveness in South China Sea, and it has been muscling its way through, and expansionism. So, and it has directly confronted not only Philippines but also Malaysia, and to that extent Taiwan, and even with Japan it has issues. So therefore, this deal does have strategic implications because it does give Philippines a certain amount of capability to take on the Chinese aggressive designs. Second point is that, as India, you rightly brought out that we have logged about $2.5 billion in export in the last financial year, and target set by the government of the day is about $5 billion. So therefore, we are right on track to emerge as a major manufacturer. But I like to make a couple of points in the direction.
Right.
First and foremost, we need to have a very clear strategic roadmap, because defense equipment, weapon systems have strategic and geopolitical implications. Secondly, number of initiatives are being taken, like we have gone in for the defense corridors. There is a certain amount of synergy being created between the DRDO, between the R&D, finance, user. So this has to be put together. We need to have a very clear roadmap. Thirdly, we need to tap the opportunities, because today America is looking for making India a major manufacturing hub. So also, even Japanese are coming forward. We have a good tie-up now with France, because right now the submarine manufacturing initiative is in the pipeline, and we also collaborated with South Korea to manufacturing artillery guns. So all I can say is that ecosystem needs to be created.
Okay.
Opportunities are there.
Okay.
And India is on the right track.
Yeah.
And now
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'll come back to you for the second round, sir. You've made those important points. Ambassador Pinak Chakravarti also on the telecast with me. And Ambassador, what does this signify to India, to our armed forces, to our defense capabilities, our manufacturing capabilities, and also to the world, whether it is United States of America, France, Israel, Russia, from whom we have traditionally been importing defense equipment, arms and ammunition?
There are multiple dimensions to this deal. One is that it's a major deal of a missile system. which of course has to adhere to the MTCR guidelines, and the range has been kept below 300, which is the MTCR when India is a member of the MTCR. The other second point is that that you could say that our defense industry has come of age in that sense, because it's a sophisticated missile system that is imported. Much of our defense industry has to cater to our own large defense requirements. Yet we are one of the largest importers, probably the second or the third importer of arms in the world. So this is a gradual sort of a step-by-step approach when we start building our own, major military hardware systems. And slowly, the import contents will go down. Much of our defense industry manufactures under license. BrahMoS, of course, was an Indo-Russian venture. And now, strategic aspect of it are twofold. One is, of course, to build the capability of the Philippines defense forces, particularly the Navy, because these are the naval versions of the BrahMoS that are being sold. And not that they want to get into a fight with China. China is too big a power, has considerable capabilities that the Philippines can never match. But the Philippines is allied with the US. Two important aspects here. One is that the Philippines has always bought American equipment because it's an ally, and it's a non-NATO ally. And so this is the first time that they are buying the BrahMoS from India. The second aspect is the important one of the Quad. India is a member of the Quad, and I am quite sure that the Americans would have given the nod for this to the Philippines, that yes, you acquire this from India, which also boosts the capabilities of the Quad to some extent. And the other members, of course, as you know, are Australia and Japan. Japan also has problems in the South China Sea over this grabbing of islands or the expansionist role that China seeks to play. And the other countries, and India is in talks with some other countries as well.
Yes.
I think Malaysia and Indonesia also may later on opt for these. Now, this will build, I think, for India a certain amount of deterrence via these countries in China's backyard. So, just as China is coming out into the Indian Ocean and India's neighboring countries to contain India to some extent, if I could use that word, then this will also add to India's sort of strategic capability to help these countries and to create problems for China as well.
That's an important point that you make, and if Major General Sudhakarji could also comment on it and then elaborate the fact that up until very recently, India has been minding its own business, if I may say so, versus the skirmishes India has witnessed against the Chinese PLA along the line of actual control, and the other interferences that have been made by the Chinese military. There has been action that has been taken, and indirectly so, in the South China Sea, with the help that is being provided to the Philippines, of course, potential deals between India and Indonesia and Malaysia and other Southeast Asian countries. Is there a message that is going out to China in a tacit way about India's capabilities and what its future agenda is going to be in the Indo-Pacific region?
Megha, good morning, because I'm speaking to NewsX from the west coast of America along the Pacific. It must be early evening in India. Excellent question raised by you. Before I get consumed by the answer to the question you have raised, let me highlight one aspect. That so far, India has been dealing with its traditional partners in Southeast Asia. When I say traditional partners in Southeast Asia, what I mean to highlight is Singapore and Vietnam. This is for the first time India has extended an outreach to Philippines like a country which is stretched out beyond 1,000 miles north-south from Kuril Island of Japan and down south to Brunei. and which forms the eastern flank of South China Sea, the 9-dash line. And having done so, offering these missile platforms, these are potent supersonic missiles which cannot be detected by the best of the sensor mechanism available. So, not only posing a deterrent, I look at it that what India has been experiencing along the northern border for past several years, particularly post Galwan incident, extended standoff, India's approach to address the threat being posed by China in terms of containing it, competing against it, and getting ready for a confrontation with punitive deterrence measure. No, don't get mixed up. Let's not be unnecessarily get puzzled by the nuclear deterrent concept, etc., etc. I'm using it as a conventional terminology. So, containment-wise, this provision of missiles to Philippines-like country, like the ambassador very rightly alluded to, I must compliment the ambassador, that India is in talk with Vietnam and Indonesia, no other country. Indonesia, there are very intense dialogues which are going on. We are in the final stages. We are likely to be selling additional platforms of BrahMoS to Southeast Asia, especially to Vietnam and Indonesia in large numbers.
Right.
Same is the case with Vietnam. Mega one point, because the basic issue is not the extended standoff along the northern border. The basic issue is China is asserting its presence and expansionism in the South China Sea. South China Sea is important to India because 55% of our trade is maritime trade which passes through South China Sea towards the West Pacific. Back to you, Megha.
Okay. Okay, all right. All important points made. Vinkamata Sudhakar, I'm going to take this conversation to a different turn and talking about how there has been a report that has been published just a couple of days ago. India becomes the 4th highest military spender. China is at $296 billion US dollars, second only to the United States of America. United States of America, in contrast, spends a whopping $916 billion US dollars, which accounts to 37% of the total global expenditure. Then comes after China, there's US, there's China, there's Russia, there's India, and then Saudi Arabia. And India constitutes just a mere 3.7% of the total global military spend. Now, at a time when the world is focusing on the Indian Ocean region, also America earns a large amount of revenue by way of export of arms and ammunition. And India coming closer to the number of nations in the top 4, top 5 category who are expending more and more of their finances into buying more equipment. Does it also make it's logical, it makes common sense that we are able to not just procure our defense equipment from abroad, which has been our traditional go-to, but actually manufacture it, thereby keeping the currency, keeping the funds, keeping the capital within the country and utilize it for oil or for crude or for whatever reasons that we go and spend money, spend foreign exchange.
Thank you, Megha. First, let me put things in perspective first. You were talking about the global arms spending, which is roughly around $2.3 trillion that, all put together. And out of that, China and US alone account for more than 1.4 trillion. That's the state that we are in. The second important point that I want to make here is India, China, and US are in a race for hegemony and supremacy in the years to come. It's just a matter of time that India overtakes Japan and Germany and then, joins China and US in this race. If you look at India's problem, approximately 70 to 80% of India's problem, the sole contributors and the deep states that are involved come both from the US as well as China. US has this policy of running with the hare and hunting with the hound. The earlier we see it, the better it is for us. China, on the other hand, will wrap its one hand on our shoulder, the other hand will have a dagger in its hand and it is waiting to stab. And that is the nature of the race that we are involved in. We may like it, we may not like it, we can talk anything, but we simply don't have a choice. We also don't have a choice to continue to import weapons like we did 10 years, 15 years, 20 years back. Because the kind of technology that we are seeing today in the market is every technology has got a sense of its own and it will have a mind of its own. So much so that we will not be able to even understand what kind of hidden vulnerabilities are infested within these weapon systems. This is something that the National Security Council of India needs to understand, and therefore it is more important today than it was yesterday that we have our own weapon systems in place. So if we are going to manufacture and if it is our compulsion and it is not out of choice, these things are going to be seen by the numbers in the days to come. We just don't have a choice. And therefore, we will see India, which was primarily an importer yesterday, will incline and will be aligned more towards exporting cutting-edge weapon systems, and that is where the race will heat up. If we don't have weapons of our own, we cannot maintain the kind of fiscal integrity that we've had so far.
Okay.
If there are people who are going to interfere with our political system, they will definitely interfere with our financial markets, they will interfere with our security systems, and therefore we will have a lot of problems to deal with. The country, fortunately, have found a good leadership. That was what India was lacking in the first 70 years. We didn't have a good leader. Today, for the first time in the last 10 years, we fortunately, by luck, I would say this is by luck, we have found a leader in Narendra Modi who has brought India to this place. We cannot afford to sleep. And we have to continue this work for another 10, 15 years. That's when India can actually consider itself in safe territories.
Okay.
As of today, we are very much in uncharted waters. We are in troubled waters. We need to still get out of it. And therefore, all these developments that you see is a consequence of compulsion, not of choice.
Okay, absolutely. Major General Dwivedi, carrying forward this conversation with regards to, let's take a look at the reality of the situation. And it's all good that we are building these missiles and we are providing BrahMoS, and there are other exports, defense exports that are happening in the subcontinent and in the Southeast Asian region. But at the end of the day, when we are talking about the state-of-the-art fighter jets, when we are talking about the submarines, the Scorpions, we're talking about Rafales, we're talking about the fighter jet deal that has been signed very recently between US and India, and a number of these American defense giants, we talk about Boeing and GE Aerospace, General Atomics. It's even today, it's difficult for HAL to actually manufacture the fighter jets. We don't have the R&D, we don't have the wherewithal to build the engines that form the core of these jets, of these armament, of this equipment. How long do you see, how long do you see India growing into a position that it is able to indigenously create these complex systems, complex engines, so that we are no longer reliant on these big American giants?
Well, Megha, before I take on your question, I'd like to clarify 2-3 important issues. First and foremost, the security paradigm has undergone phenomenal change. The definition of security itself has got redefined. So therefore, each country evaluates, reevaluates, and assesses its security challenges, and so also India is doing. Secondly, national interests are correlated with the security interest. And today, India's national interests are far beyond the geographic boundaries. We are looking at Indo-Pacific, we are looking at Indian Ocean region. So therefore, our national interests are today far beyond our geographic boundaries. Now, taking these two together, what role are we looking at India and what role is India looking at itself? First and foremost, I think India is a balancing factor in the new global order, and both in Southeast Asia, in the Indian Ocean region, even in African continent, India is being seen as a balancer. Secondly, we are also being seen as a security provider. You would have seen latest what is happening in Red Sea and what all piracy, and Indian Navy has gone well beyond its role to bring in certain amount of stability in that region. So therefore, we are also will be seen as a
Okay.
security provider. And just 2 points. In
So
that role
quickly,
now, when we see,
because I'm out of time, so
yeah,
I
just
would like to go
the
to the
question
other
of
panelists as well. Quickly, yeah,
question of
30 seconds. Yeah.
Atmanirbhar, yes, we have to go gradually because engines and such like equipment is very sophisticated. We have to gradually go forward and more importantly, have a TOT transfer, technology transfer, and have tie-ups because by yourself at this stage we are not capable of producing this sophisticated equipment, but we can get into collaboration, and that's the way forward, Mega.
Okay. Ambassador Chakrabarti, now are we looking at replicating the model that the United States of America has followed, as my other panelist was talking about in a moment ago, that they are able to garner their revenues and build on their capital by primarily because of the exports. So every war that is happening across the globe, America is a primary factor or a primary component to support the war, to send out the arms and ammunition. Is India also looking to become somebody like that?
Well, there's this favorite theory that the American military-industrial complex needs a war, some war somewhere to survive in terms of supplying weapons and these kind of things. I don't think India is in that game at all. India is not looking to be a hegemon like the US or China. India, as our government has said many times, seeks to become a leading power. The word is leading power, which basically means that we would, in a multipolar world that we wish to see, India will be one of the poles, and hence a balancing factor among many nations. So
Okay.
what we say are that strategy playing out, and one of the things that India needs to do is obviously to bolster its defense industry, sell weaponry abroad, and earn foreign exchange so that it can plow it back into the industry, build technologies, and collaborate with those who are willing to collaborate with us on these issues.
Okay. Then Major General Sudhakarji, a pressing question and a logical one at that, when the top two economies of the world control have spent 50% of the world military funds into their militaries, into their armed forces, and if you have a large armed forces, you have a large army, the Navy and the Air Force, that automatically makes you a powerful nation to be reckoned with across the globe. So how should India then figure out a middle path situation where it is a leading light, it is not an expansionist or a hegemony, it is also looking to work for the welfare of the country, a Vishwamitra, as the Prime Minister puts it, and at the same time an economy, a country that China would be wary of getting entangled with?
Megha, very quick reflections from my side. The point number one, the economy has to expand by leaps and bounds. 30 trillion US dollar economy also would appear a measly sum after a couple of years. We have to be very ambitious and have a long-term plan. This is for the first time that the ruling dispensation has made some kind of a long-term plan up to 2047. We need to look at a time spectrum of something close to 100 years, where India should be 100 years from now. Number two, we need to minimize our import liability. So far, we have been saying, yes, the import from Russia, the hardware particularly, we have reduced from 72% or 86% to 36%, but not mindful of the fact that in case of France and US, our percentage of import of the hardware, military hardware, has gone up to 36% and 13% respectively. So put together, it actually touches a figure of 82%. So whether it is left hand or the right hand, you see, either way, the import is carrying on. So therefore,
Right.
the answer lies in minimizing our import liability.
Right.
And third and most important, how does it happen? We have to base our economy on export-oriented economy.
Absolutely.
Back to you.
Absolutely. Vinkumata Sudhakaran, export-oriented ideology, export-oriented policy, then what does the difference lie between in America and in India? In America being a primary component, like I said, in supplying these weapons to whether it is the Ukraine war that is happening or we talk about the Middle East war between Israel and the Palestinians.
See, let me quickly put this in perspective and get the point straight. In a world which is full of hegemons, we can't really be someone who stands unique and try to preach morality and ethics. It just simply doesn't work. Let's understand this. We've been doing it for far too long. For a simple thing, for a simple answer that I have to give you, we're still banking on the unknown gunmen who are bringing justice, which was not given to us for 30, 40 years. People were coming into the country, they were bombing us left, right, and center. So if you are going to adapt a policy that we are going to be a balancing force or a force which is going to bring in calm and prosperity, it's just not going to work.
Right.
You are dealing, mind you, you are going to deal with two people. Those are bullies, those are hegemons. They understand they need to be paid in their own currency. They understand their language better. So and Modi and Amit Shah have understood it more than anyone else, and India needs to conduct its affairs accordingly and proportionately so that people don't take us lightly and we are considered serious and they understand not to mess up with us. That is the simple point that I want to track today.
Okay, all right. I'm out of time. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, sharing your views.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.